This problem separates the serious students from those simply occupying seats. Pay attention or don't bother coming back.
Highest honors. Well earned, son.
We did it, Grandma.
There is a moment in every person's life when the world decides to test them. Not with fire. Not with war. But with humiliation. The kind that crawls under your skin and lives there for years. This is the story of a man named Marcus Wade. A man who sat in a classroom and was told, in front of everyone, that he would never amount to anything. And the woman who said it. She had no idea who she was really talking to. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. It was the fall of 2003 in the small city of Greendale, Ohio. A quiet, forgettable kind of town, the kind where the leaves turn orange every October and the smell of coffee and fried dough drift out of the diners on Main Street. Marcus Wade was 17 years old, and he was sitting in the back row of room 114 at Greendale High School, in a math class taught by a woman named Mrs. Diane Colton. His shoes had a hole in the left sole. His backpack zipper was broken and held together with a safety pin. His lunch most days was whatever his grandmother packed, a biscuit, sometimes an apple, and a small note that always said the same thing, "You are more than they know." Marcus's father had walked out when he was 4. His mother had passed away from a heart condition when he was 12. And so it was just him and his grandmother, Ruth Wade, in a 2-bedroom house on the east side of Greendale, the side of town where the street lights flickered and the road stayed cracked through every season. But Marcus Wade was brilliant. Not the kind of brilliant that announces itself with straight A's and science fair trophies. The quiet kind. The kind that watches everything, absorbs everything, and processes the world in ways most people never notice. He had a gift for numbers that was almost eerie, the kind of mind that could look at an equation and feel it, the way a musician hears a chord before it's played. His grandmother had noticed it early. His teachers, most of them, had not. And then there was Mrs. Colton. Diane Colton had been teaching mathematics at Greendale High for 19 years when Marcus walked into her classroom. She was known for 2 things, being exceptionally good at mathematics herself, and being exceptionally cruel about who she believed deserved to learn it. She had a favorites list, students from the right neighborhoods, the right families, with the right last names, and Marcus Wade was never going to be on it. She had made up her mind about him before he ever opened a textbook. She saw a quiet, poor kid from the east side of town, and she saw a lost cause. That is the most dangerous kind of prejudice. Not the loud, obvious kind. The quiet, daily kind. The kind that happens in small moments that no one else seems to notice. It was a Thursday in November, grey and cold, when it happened. Mrs. Colton had put a calculus problem on the board, an advanced problem, the kind usually reserved for seniors preparing for college exams. Marcus had been walking quietly in the back, and without thinking, he raised his hand. "I think I can solve it," he said. The class went quiet. Mrs. Colton turned slowly from the board, looked at him the way you look at something you don't quite believe, and said, "Marcus, sweetheart, some of us are here to solve problems, and some of us are here to be them." The class laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. He put his hand down. He did not raise it again, not for the rest of the year. Now I want you to pause for a second and really think about that. Imagine being 17 years old, sitting in a classroom where you are already fighting everything life has thrown at you, poverty, loss, loneliness, and the one person who is supposed to open doors for you uses your ambition as the punchline of a joke. How would that have felt to you? Would you have walked away? Would you have carried it? Because Marcus Wade carried it. He folded it up, pressed it deep inside his chest, and he made a decision that Thursday afternoon that would quietly shape the next 20 years of his life. He was going to prove her wrong. Not that day. Not the next year. But one day. And when that day came, it would not be loud. It would not be angry. It would simply be undeniable. Marcus graduated from Greendale High School in 2004 with a GPA that did not reflect what he was capable of, and a scholarship that almost didn't happen. He had applied to 7 colleges. 6 rejected him. 1, a small engineering school in Columbus called Hartwell University, said yes, based on a recommendation letter from his grandmother's pastor and a personal essay that, according to the admissions officer who read it, made her cry at her desk. He arrived at Hartwell with 1 suitcase, $300, and his grandmother's voice in his head. The first year was brutal. He worked the overnight shift at a gas station 4 nights a week and attended class in the mornings on 3 hours of sleep, sometimes less. There were nights he sat in the library at 2 in the morning with his textbooks open and tears on his face, not from sadness, but from exhaustion. He had never been so tired in his life. But every time the thought of quitting entered his mind, he heard something else. He heard Mrs. Colton's voice. Some of us are here to solve problems, and some of us are here to be them. And that voice, that cold, dismissive voice, became fuel. By his second year, he had caught the attention of a computer science professor named Dr. Raymond Ellis, a quiet man who spotted talent the way experienced fishermen spot movement under the water. Dr. Ellis pulled Marcus aside after class one afternoon and said, "I don't know what's driving you, son, but whatever it is, don't let go of it." He guided Marcus toward a research project in algorithmic trading, a corner of finance where mathematics and technology intersected in ways that most people in 2005 and 2006 barely understood. Marcus understood it. He understood it deeply. And what he built during those years, late at night in the university computer lab, was the seed of something extraordinary. It was during his junior year that Marcus met Claire Beaumont. She was a finance major, bright, composed, with a laugh that arrived without warning and stayed long after the joke had ended. She was from Charleston, South Carolina, the daughter of a retired judge, and she had grown up with the kind of ease and comfort that Marcus had only ever seen from the outside. But she was not pretentious. She was, in fact, the opposite. She sat next to him in an economics seminar in the fall of 2006, leaned over, looked at his notes, and whispered, "You see things differently than everyone else in this room, don't you?" He looked at her. "Is that a problem?" She smiled. "It's the only thing I find interesting." They fell in love slowly, the way real love usually happens, through late-night conversations and shared meals and the kind of silences that feel comfortable instead of empty. Claire knew about Marcus's background. She knew about his mother, his grandmother, the gas station shifts, the hole in the shoe. She never made him feel small for any of it. Not once. And for Marcus Wade, a man who had spent most of his life being made to feel like he did not belong, that was everything. He graduated in 2008 at the top of his class. Claire was there. His grandmother Ruth was there, wearing a hat she had bought specifically for the occasion, crying from the moment his name was called until long after the ceremony ended. In 2009, Marcus launched a financial technology company called Waymark Analytics from a one-room office in Columbus, Ohio. It was him, a laptop, and a business plan that Claire helped him refine over 3 months of evenings at their kitchen table. The idea was elegant in the way only truly brilliant ideas are, a software platform that used predictive algorithms to detect patterns in market volatility that human analysts routinely missed. It was precise. It was fast. And it was right, more often than anyone expected. By 2011, 2 hedge funds had licensed the software. By 2013, Waymark Analytics was operating in 14 countries. By 2016, Marcus Wade was worth an estimated $1.4 billion. He had done it quietly. No press tours, no social media presence, no profile pieces in business magazines. He had deliberately kept his face and his name away from the spotlight. In the financial world, he was known. Everywhere else, he was a ghost. His grandmother Ruth, who had lived to see every step of it, passed away peacefully in the spring of 2017, in a house that Marcus had bought for her, in a neighborhood where the streetlights never flickered. He sat with her hand in his for the last hour of her life. She never stopped believing he was more than they knew. She had been right. In February of 2019, a letter arrived at Waymark Analytics addressed to the CEO. The return address was Greendale, Ohio. Marcus's assistant nearly discarded it, assuming it was a personal matter unrelated to business. But something made Marcus open it himself. Inside was a fundraising letter from Greendale High School, announcing a major capital campaign to renovate their STEM facilities. The letter was signed by the school's development director. And at the bottom, listed as the campaign's lead advocate and honorary chair, was the name Diane Colton, now retired from teaching but still connected to the school as a donor and community figure. Marcus sat with that letter in his hands for a very long time. He set it down on his desk. He picked it up again. He walked to his window and looked out over the city. And something shifted inside him, not into anger, but into a kind of calm, purposeful clarity. He called Claire that evening and said, "I need to go back to Greendale." He drove to Greendale himself, in a car that did not announce money, wearing clothes that did not announce success. He wanted to walk those streets the way he had walked them at 17, invisible. He drove past the old house on the east side. He stopped at the diner on Main Street and ordered coffee and eggs. He sat in the same booth he and his grandmother had sat in on Sunday mornings before church. He tipped the waitress $40 and watched her eyes go wide. And then he drove to the high school, to room 114. The classroom was empty that afternoon, between periods. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking at the back row. Looking at the seat where a 17-year-old boy had once raised his hand and been publicly humiliated by the person who was supposed to lift him. He felt the memory move through him like cold water. And then he walked away. That evening, he attended a community reception at Greendale High in connection with the fundraising campaign. He had registered quietly under the name Marcus W., listed as a potential donor. The room was full of local business owners, school board members, city officials, and community figures. And there, near the refreshments table, in a beige blazer and pulse, holding a glass of white wine and laughing with the principal, was Diane Colton. She was older, her hair fully silver now. But the way she held herself, that particular brand of self-satisfaction, had not changed at all. She did not recognize him. She shook his hand and smiled warmly when they were introduced. She was charming. She was gracious. She was completely unaware. And Marcus smiled back, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I've heard a lot about you." He meant every word of it. What happened next is the part that nobody in Greendale saw coming. Marcus Wade did not humiliate Diane Colton. He did not expose her. He did not walk into that reception and announce who he was and what she had done. That is not the man he had become. Instead, over the following weeks, through his private foundation, Marcus committed $4.2 million to the Greendale High School STEM renovation, the largest single donation in the school's history. The condition of his gift was simple and specific. The new mathematics wing would be named the Ruth Wade Center for Mathematics and Science, after his grandmother. Not after him. Not to send a message. But to honor the woman who had told him, every single day of his childhood, that he was more than they knew. The story of the donation made local news. And then regional news. And then, when a journalist in Columbus connected the name Marcus Wade to the boy who had grown up poor on the east side of Greendale, the story went everywhere. Every detail emerged. Including the classroom. Including Mrs. Colton. Including November 2003 and a calculus problem and a cruel remark in front of a class full of students. The journalist had tracked down 5 former classmates who all remembered the incident exactly. They all said the same thing. They had never forgotten it. And neither had he. Diane Colton gave a public statement. She said she did not specifically remember the incident. She said she regretted any student who ever felt diminished in her classroom. She said she was grateful for the donation. It was a careful, measured, public relations statement. It said everything and meant nothing. But the community of Greendale heard it. And more importantly, every former student of hers who had ever sat in room 114 and been made to feel small, heard it too. The night the story broke nationally, Claire sat across from Marcus at their kitchen table in Columbus, the same table where they had spent 3 months building the business plan for Waymark Analytics, and she looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "You could have done anything. You could have walked in there and destroyed her. Why didn't you?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because Ruth Wade raised me. And Ruth Wade never destroyed anything. She only ever built things. Claire reached across the table and took his hand. She had loved this man for more than a decade. But in that moment, she understood something about him she had not fully understood before. That the boy in the back row of room 114 had never stopped being shaped by two women, one who tried to break him, and one who refused to let him be broken. The first one had made him driven. The second one had made him good. And between the two of them, they had made something the world did not see coming. The Ruth Wade Center for Mathematics and Science opened in Greendale, Ohio in the spring of 2021. On the day of the ribbon cutting, Marcus stood outside and looked up at the name on the building. He did not give a speech. He had declined that. But a young girl, maybe 12 years old, from the east side of town, with a broken backpack zipper, walked up to him after the ceremony and said, "Is it true you used to go to school here?" Marcus crouched down to her level and said, "Right here. Back row, room 114. The girl looked at the building, then back at him. "And you really came from nothing?" Marcus smiled. He said, "I came from everything. I just didn't know it yet." Now I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because this story is not just about Marcus Wade. It is about every person who has ever been told, in a classroom, in an office, in a family kitchen, in a relationship, that they are not enough. It is about what you do with that. Do you let it break you? Or do you let it build you? Do you carry it as a wound, or do you carry it as a reason? Marcus Wade carried it as a reason. And he came back, not with fire, not with revenge, but with a building that bore his grandmother's name, in the town that tried to make him feel like nothing. Ask yourself honestly, have you ever been in that back row? Have you ever raised your hand, full of hope, and had someone slap it down? And if you have, what did you do with that? What are you still doing with it? Because somewhere, in some classroom, in some office, in some story that hasn't been told yet, there is a version of Marcus Wade who gave up. Who put his hand down and never raised it again? Who let Mrs. Colton be right? We want to know, in the comments below, what would you have done? Would you have gone back? Would you have given the money? Or would the anger have been too heavy to carry past it? And if you think this story moved you, wait until you hear what we have coming next. We are not done telling the stories that need to be told. Subscribe so you never miss a single one. Because some stories don't just entertain you. Some stories find something inside you that needed to be found.